welcome to the lecture on adding text. In this lecture, we'll see how we can add X and Y labels, titles, text, and annotations. If you haven't, please import NumPy and Matplotlib's pyplot. Once we do that, we'll look at the sine and cosine function we've been looking in the previous lectures. So we have our X values, and for our Y values, we have defined and used the cosine and sine functions. What we'll do next is use Matplotlib's plot method to plot a cosine graph, X versus cosine. Let's do that. So plt.plot, then we'll pass our value for the x-axis, and for our y-axis we'll use the cosine function. And let's use a color of red, and line width, let's make it 3.0. Let's run this. So we have a simple cosine graph. What we'll do next is how we can add X and Y labels. So to add X and Y labels, we simply call the X label and then Y label methods. Let's see that. So I'll copy this part, paste it here, and then we simply call plt.x label and then pass name for our X label. Let's say x-axis, for instance, and for our Y label we'll call the Y label method and then pass. So this will be what? Cosine of X. For our Y-axis you can pass whatever you want. Okay, cos X. Let's run this. Now we have X-axis and then a label for the Y-axis, which is cosine of X. Or you can simply say X, Y, whatever suits you best. Next, we'll see how we can add title. For that, we can call the title method. Okay, so I'll go here and then call the title method and pass the title. Let's say graph of X versus cos X, for example. Okay, so that will be our title, graph of X versus cosine of X. Another thing we can do is we can change the default values for our labels. We can pass attributes to this X label or Y label methods. For instance, we can change the font or color of our label. Let's see an example of that. I'll copy that, paste it here. So we have plt.x label, x-axis, and we can change the font size by passing the font size attribute. Let's say 15 maybe. And then if you want to change the color, you can pass the color attribute, and let's set it to be maybe green. And for our Y label, we can do the same thing. Font size is equal to 15, and color, let's make it blue. If we run this now, so we have label for our x-axis is in green, and label for our y-axis is in blue. Okay, you can do that. Another thing we can do is we can pass the grid method by simply calling the grid method and then set it to be true. So our figure will have grids. See, we have nice grids now. You can do that. If you don't want the grid, you can just comment this out. But to pass a grid, you simply call the grid method and then pass the value through. Next, let me show you how we can add annotations. annotation, for instance, if I want to point out this maximum value here, so the maximum value occurs when x is 0, right? So if I want to annotate this and then write down some annotation, we can do that by calling the annotation method. Let's see that. So plt.annotate, that's the method, and then pass the text that we want to display. For instance, this is 1 maximum value, and then where do you want the text to appear? So you'll pass the xy location, the xy. So for our cosine of x, it happens at 1 maximum value occurs at 0, 1, which is when x is 0 and y is 1. That's 1 maximum value. So we pass the xy attribute to our annotate method, and then there's another attribute known as xy text. So the text will appear at this specific xy value. So let's pass, we can adjust this later on. For now I'll pass, let's say 5 and 0.5 maybe, and then the last attribute we want is the arrow props attribute. So arrow props, so this will be the arrow that will point this maximum value for our annotation. So for our arrow prop, we'll pass a dictionary, and then we'll use the dictionary method and pass color, and there's another attribute known as shrink. Let's pass those. So we'll call the dict method, and then pass the face color attribute, and we'll set the face color to whatever color you want for your arrow. Let's say black. Let's put the arrow props attribute on a new line. Okay, so face color we have black, and the second is called shrink, and this will control the thickness of your arrow. Let's pass 0.09 maybe. Okay, let's run the cell and see what it looks like. Okay, it looks okay, right? So here you have your annotation, and then it says this is 1 maximum value, right? And let's change the position, so you can adjust to where you want it to be displayed. Okay, let's see if I change this to 7 and maybe 0.3, and let's change this to 0.14 and run it. So that's what we have. This is 1 maximum value. So you can change this, the position for your annotation. Okay, for instance, let me change this to maybe 2.5 and 1.5 and run it. Okay, this could be better. This is 1 maximum value. So you can play around with this and see that you get a better position. Okay, great. Thank you everyone, and